Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this ODI webinar on digital dissidence, Russian online censorship, and the possibilities for opposition, in which we will explore both the consequences of the massive escalation in political repression and media censorship, which has been occurring since the beginning of Russia's, at least the beginning, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine on 24th of February. And we begin to ask how media actors can respond to this. This is actually part of a new segment of ODI's work, which is very exciting, on digital societies and also builds on our previous work on online freedoms, censorship, and disinformation. Welcome, everybody. I'm Ratin Roy, and I'm Managing Director of ODI. And I'm going to hand over my colleague Theo very shortly to introduce the speakers and we then engage in discussion. Some housekeeping rules. We will be recording this webinar, so it's not Chatham House rules, obviously, and we will upload it for later this week on the ODI website when the Queen is not competing with us. The webinar will be in English, but we will have simultaneous interpretation and into Russian. You can turn this on by clicking the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen. Please submit questions in chat. We will then integrate them into our discussion. And I guess that's it in terms of housekeeping. So let me now commence proceedings by inviting my colleague Theo to introduce the speakers, and then we will hear a short initial presentation from them, followed by discussion. Over to you, Theo.
Thanks, Ratin. So despite the somewhat less than joyous subject today, I'm very excited to welcome a brilliant panel of speakers, including 4 opposition journalists and 1 researcher. Although all 4 of our speakers were either born in Russia or worked there for much of their careers, it is telling that not one of them is joining us today from Russia. The journalists joining us today, Ekaterina Kotrikadze, Farida Rustamova, and Taisia Vekbulatova, all have extensive experience working at or with independent media outlets, and their work has brought each of them into direct confrontation with the Russian state. Ekaterina Kotrikadze worked as a journalist and news presenter at TV Rain, which, until it was forced to stop broadcasting on the 5th of March 2022, was the leading Russian opposition channel and is now a co-host of the YouTube channel Kotrikadze Syatko. Farida Rustamova is an independent journalist who has worked with almost every opposition outlet in Russia, including Meduza, TV Rain, and the BBC Russian service. She now publishes her own newsletter, Farid Daily. Taisia Vekbulatova is the editor-in-chief of one of Russia's boldest independent news outlets, All Media. On the 30th of December 2021, she was declared a foreign agent by the Russian Ministry of Justice. Our final speaker is lecturer and researcher at the University of Sheffield, Ilya Yablokov. He has written extensively on the role of conspiracy theories in Russian state propaganda and disinformation, including 2 books on the subject, and as such is uniquely placed to talk to us about the forms of propaganda favored by the Russian state and what makes it so hard for independent journalists to fight against it. And so now that we have introduced speakers, I'll pass the floor back to Ratin, and our speakers can make their initial statements.
Yes, so can I first invite Ekaterina Kotrikadze to make her initial statement?
Hi there. Well, thanks a lot for the invitation, and I'm honored to be a part of this discussion. Well, you know, the situation in Russia is tough. Right now, there is no independent news media organizations there, not even a single one. So everyone was banned, everyone was forced to leave the country. And as we understand, at least I have this kind of feeling that when the so-called special military operation started in Russian Federation, the idea was to push the journalists, independent journalists, from the country. So I don't think, and I don't see that there was a goal to arrest all of us, to detain all of us, you know, to put us in prison and to have such a huge problem and mess and chaos with us sitting in prison. This was not a main goal on that stage. And everything was, the whole situation, atmosphere was built to give us the sense of danger that we all felt in Russia. There were a lot of steps taken by the government, including this law that you have all heard about, the law which actually puts a person up to 15 years in prison just for calling a war a war, or to covering the situation in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, or for quoting, for example, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, or any other representative of Ukraine government. So this law was just one part of the whole chain of steps taken by Vladimir Putin and his friends to give us an understanding that we could not stay there anymore, including personal threats that I was getting, and my husband, editor-in-chief of TV Rain, was getting. Texts like "We are the slaves of Ramzan Kadyrov," who is head of Chechnya and who is out of any laws in Russia and who can do anything he wants, including, terrible criminal activities that he practices these days, included in Ukraine. So we know that there is a huge threat for us if we go back there. On this stage, they think that we're not a problem for them, but I hope that we are. What we do is we understood that there are just few channels left that we can use to reach the audience in Russia. First of all, we have launched a YouTube channel, me and my husband, Tikhon Zitko, and we are having streams twice weekly, including tonight on Tuesdays, and on Fridays we have home streamings, talking to the people in Ukraine and out of Ukraine, newsmakers, decision makers. We're trying to cover the events, the things that are important to the Russian audience, and we understand that the audience is really interested. After we have fled Russia, I was getting personally, all my colleagues actually from TV Rain were getting the messages and comments from the viewers of TV Rain. People were literally begging for any sort of information source. They were begging to cover the situation. They were begging to explain what the hell is going on with their country, not only with Ukraine, but also with their country, with themselves. And this is what we're trying to do from Georgia, Tbilisi, right now. Our colleagues from TV Rain have also launched their own YouTube channels, and we're planning the big reunion of the channel in a couple of months, which is extremely important to us, to build a new big media organization, media outlet, to be a real problem for Russian propaganda faces. Right now we are, but still it would be much stronger that the whole channel, with a lot of people working there, with the system and organization and logistics, it's going to be much more efficient, in our opinion. Also, we have this Telegram channels. Almost all of us, the journalists of TV Rain, the faces of TV Rain, we have this Telegram channels, and Farida Rustamov, for example, also has. All independent journalists who were forced to leave the country are trying all the best to reach people inside of Russia, and not only them, also to reach people who are out of the country and who are also really searching for the independent sources of information to know the details of this catastrophe. So this is for the introduction. Thank you very much again for having me, and go on.
Yeah. Thank you. And yes, so one important takeaway is that you do have a YouTube, YouTube TV channel broadcast today. So members of the audience might want to take note of that and join it. And our next speaker is Farida Rustamova.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Do you hear me? Is everything okay? Yeah, and well, actually, I've been preparing a huge speech about my career in numerous independent media, but I'm not gonna tell you about my whole experience. I want to support Ekaterina and tell that the goal of this devastation of Russian independent media, the last that was remaining in the beginning of the war, it was actually the disorganization and devastation in order to deprive Russian population from literally any source of independent information, and to cover everything with propaganda and sugar pill everything that is going on right now. And we have not so many channels left. And me personally, I don't have a YouTube channel, but I have my Telegram channel, and I have launched my Substack newsletter at the beginning of the war, because I chose Substack because it's a platform that is not very popular in Russia. It's actually unknown in Russia, and I chose it because everything was blocked, obviously, as you probably know. And the main problem right now, as I see it, is actually all this blocking. Although, of course, many people are now using VPNs, and the usage of it increased enormously since the beginning of the war. But yeah, it's a big challenge for us, because the more effort you need to take to reach the independent source, it's the harder it's harder to gain popularity. It's harder to reach audience if it takes too much effort. I think that maybe Substack and the newsletters that are delivered via email may be some kind of answer to that. So it's a brief about my current activities, and tell me please if you want me to talk you through about the developments of the fate of the Russian independent media right before the war, because it's actually, I think it is important to know about these challenges and the surprising paradox that happened with them in the first days of the war, that made Russian society visibly divided. Although, as I've said already, there are only a few of independent media.
Thank you, Farida. We'll come back to some of these questions later in the chat, hopefully. I certainly have a couple of questions for you. So now, I think, Taisia.
Yes, hello, and thank you for having me here. I'm very glad. And I would say, for starting, that what happened on February is a natural result of Vladimir Putin's many years of rule, for my opinion. And if before it was a problem for Russian people, those repressions and censorship, and it was like only for Russians, but what is happening now is a problem for the whole world, and we need to think about it like in all countries. And if we talk about our publication, which is called Holod Media, our site was blocked, as many others, on April 9th. And I myself was personally declared in Russia as a foreign agent, which means, which is a modern analog of the Soviet expression. It's like enemy of the people. And it means that law means that for any two posts on social media without indicating that you are a foreign agent, the state can send you to prison. So, and after that, in Russia, there was a law. They adopted a new law. They call it like a law of fakes. But actually, it was a law which was created to fight an independent media and independent journalists. And they made this law and told us that if you use word war for telling about the war, so you can be sent to prison for 15 years. And after that, we evacuated our journalists from Russia because it was too dangerous for them to work inside the country. I would like to draw attention actually to the situation of journalists in the regions of Russia, because their situation is much worse, in my opinion, than of journalists from Moscow publications, because to leave and there are no independent media in the regions left where they can work as a media professionals. So for many years, regional journalism in Russia has been dying, but it is quite dead today. So there are rare exceptions, but in general, this is the case. So I'd like to say about that. And I think that's all for my introduction. And thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Taisia. This was very interesting, and you gave us a sense of the history, I think, which we need to come back to in a minute. But before that, let's get our final speaker, Ilya Yablokov, to make his opening comments.
Thank you. Just want to check, how much time do I have for this introductory?
How much time would you like?
Okay, cool. Right. So thank you so much. I'm really glad to be on the same panel with this wonderful Russian journalists. I admire their work. Some of them are my friends. So it's really good to be here and to share some of the ideas that I have about the journalism and dissidence, and in a way in this how the media system works. So you've introduced me as an expert on this information, but the second part of my kind of academic and professional interest is how journalism in Russian post-Soviet space has been developing after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So very often we hear about the parallels with the Soviet Union and the fact that a lot of the contemporary Russian establishments are sort of rooted in this low-level nomenclatura of the late Soviet Union, which is fair. But I'd like to say that I think it's going to be a big mistake to compare, let's say, what dissidents have been doing in the Soviet Union and even in the late Soviet period, and what's happening with the Russian society and Russian media and state media and independent media in Putin's Russia. Because I think one of the key differences, there are lots of differences, certainly on technological, cultural, political level, ideological level, but I think one of the biggest key elements that defines why the Russian kind of government or state-aligned media operates so well is capitalism, the money, and how the system works, why there are so many the so-called journalists, certainly we wouldn't call them journalists these days, but those who work in the media, they work there first and foremost for career aspirations and for financial reasons, even if they don't share the views of the state or those people who represent the state. They kind of they have to work there. That's kind of, they sign the contract, they have obligations, they have debts, etc. So, and this is not the development of the recent years or so. Although I agree with Taisia, it's been going that way for a few years, and probably a good decade. But this kind of capitalist element of how Russian propaganda works, it's been there from basically the early 1990s. It's just the effort that the state put in shaping this propaganda machine, kind of trying to get rid of the dissenting voices. That certainly was a mass effort by state and semi-state actors in the last 2 decades. Again, all of the core panelists, they've been working in Russia in the last several years. But first, what the state have done, they tried to get rid of the funding, right? So the funding flows have been cut off. And then when independent media found a way to actually operate and use other means of financing their operations, the state basically intervenes with the force and cuts of their ability to report to the public. So this financial aspect is, I think, is one of the key that defines how the state media works, but also how opposition media could work and will be working eventually. The second thing that I'd like to point out here is about the limitations of state propaganda and probably the agenda for the future, for that, let's hope the nearest future. What do I mean by that? We certainly observe from various polls that there is a strong support for what is called a military operation or the war in Ukraine, to be fair, but we also see that quite a lot of people are not supportive of that, and they're really scared. They are really under pressure. They are afraid to be excluded from the community, let's say, of their peers, if they're talking about regions. We do not want to be focused too much on Moscow and St. Petersburg, but at the same time, they're afraid of the legal consequences of their opinions. However, if we talk about the independent media and what independent media should be striving to do is about delivering the content that would be focused on values. And I think that's the agenda for future. What kind of future the opposition to the state media, the opposition to the state can actually bring. Reporting is very important, but also delivering the values and talking about what is going to happen after. That is also very important. In that sense, I really kind of admire what Holod does these days. Especially, I recommend the piece on nationalism and how various ethnic communities feel today. So we see from the research that I am familiar with, we see that there is quite a lot of people in Russia are interested in talking about values, kind of seeing the alternative perspective. And in that sense, the agenda of Russian independent media is very much similar to the agenda of Russian political opposition, because Russian political opposition is also, in that sense, is not performing really well in delivering what are the alternatives. And in that sense, I think when we have a quite strong state media system working, brainwashing people, indeed, that's what they do. Imagine when this system is off, what are we going to have? So how is it going to look like? The last thing I'd like to kind of observe in these days is that what happened to Russia in 1991 when the system collapsed. So in that sense, I think journalists will again play the key role in developing democratic values. But how is it going to be done? I think we can start discussing today. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very interesting and diverse set of comments. Let me encourage people who are not here and who are there remotely to please put your questions or reflections in chat. But pending that, I have a question for at least the three journalists here, which is, how surprised were you by what happened after the 24th of February? Did you see this playbook unfolding as it did? Did it surprise you? Did it overwhelm you? Any comments on this? Who'd like to start? Maybe we can go in the opposite order. Taisia, did it surprise you?
You mean the start of war?
No, I mean, what happened after the war and, to media coverage of the war and being declared?
No, I can't say I was surprised. Actually, I was expecting it because I think the Russian state wanted to do it all these years. I mean, to block all the independent media outlets, and it was like natural for them. So I don't think it's some surprise for any of independent journalists. But we're trying to fight it actually, because I know that my colleagues and our website, we created few mirror websites which are made for Russian people, so they can read our articles and to get our content. And we are working a lot on social media, despite the fact that Instagram, for example, is declared as an extremist platform in Russia. So we're doing what we can, and we're trying to get to inside Russia without being there.
Ekaterina, in the what I think Ilya called the non-journalist people who work in the media, that is the people who actually work in state media and its outlets or pro-government media, are there any fifth columnists? Are there people who tacitly are able to help you and support you to get your message across or to get your information regarding what is happening and what they have learned, but they cannot themselves write about or broadcast?
If I understand you correctly, you're asking, is there any journalists who are trying to help us to deliver the message to the Russian audience? No, actually, no. No, there are no such people in Russian Federation who would help because of different reasons. And first of all, the situation after the February 24th is quite clear. There are no shades of gray anymore in Russian Federation. This is kind of a black and white. And there are no opinion makers inside of Russia or outside of Russia who can just be independent or neutral or not to talk about what's going on. I mean, this is a disaster that is happening right now in front of our eyes. Our country is killing civilians in a neighboring country. It's invading, it's destroying, and it doesn't have any, it doesn't make any sense, right? Except for the Vladimir Putin's ambitions and his obsession on Ukraine. So I could not give you the positive answer for your question, because almost everyone have fixed their position. People who are known in Russia, they are divided. Someone is for this war, someone supports this war, someone does not. But the main part of the people who do not support this war, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of famous people who do not support this war are out of the country right now, unfortunately. So inside, it's quite complicated to find someone who would support you and who would help you in delivering the messages, because and one of the reasons is the level of fear is quite high right now in Russia. You may imagine this is a dictatorship right now, and I would, if you don't mind, I would just add to what Taisia has just mentioned, answering your previous question. During the dictatorship, you can expect something like that. Before February 24th, Vladimir Putin was trying to pretend being an autocrat, something like Erdogan, maybe something close to other, people who are tough in their countries, but who are still connected with the real connected with the democratic world, progressive societies, and so on and so forth. He was not cutting the ties. He was not burning the bridges. He wanted to be connected with Joseph Biden Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel, and then Olaf Scholz and others. I mean, to him, it was important to still have this relationships with the global world. He wanted to be in G8, which is G7 right now after the annexation of Crimea. He wanted to be, in the middle of the interests of people on G20 and so on and so forth. He wanted to be a part. And also, I would tell you, he wanted to be the guy one of two who would decide the fate of the world together with the American president. That's why he didn't want to kill everyone and everything and every single independent media outlet in Russia. But after February 24th, he decided that it doesn't make sense to him anymore. And he has cut all the ties. And he doesn't, we were ready for that. We knew that if he starts this war, actually, we would not survive this. So there was no surprise to us at all. Thank you.
Well, that's pretty clear. And that's interesting because, even in Nazi Germany and other places, you did have some collaborators. But the fact that they have not yet emerged is very troubling and very profound. It makes your job all that more difficult. Farida, can I ask you, I was reading this morning about, the impact that sanctions are having on the lives of Russians. And it seemed to me, from what I read in the Financial Times and the FT, that the impact was mainly a shrinking of imports, and it was essentially affecting middle class and richer people in Moscow and St. Petersburg. So one, to what extent is this true? And second, do you think that the reporting that we are seeing in Western media on the negative impact of sanctions in Russia, is that coming across in real lives in Russia?
I'm sorry, it's just a little echo, and I hope that I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that I understood you correctly. And so you're asking me about the impact of the sanctions on the general public, as far as speaking about sanctions and their impact on Russian media, by the way, independent media, it's a paradox, but many of Russian independent outlets that are operating right now are deprived from the support of their readers and listeners and general public because they have very little means to donate and support the independent journalists right now. It's part of it's a result of the economical sanctions that are imposed in Russia right now. I'm not saying that, it's just a fact. I'm not judging it or saying that it was wrong, but yeah, it's obvious. And I know that some of the journalists that stayed in Moscow after the war, and they were trying to continue their work, trying to continue their broadcasting on YouTube, for example, or on other platforms. They just couldn't do that because they couldn't earn money for their work. They couldn't. They didn't have. They couldn't make for a living, and some of them they in the end they decided to leave Russia to be able to earn money for their job and to continue it. And speaking of middle class and rich Russians, it's a funny thing. As far as I know, and from what I can see right now, many rich Russians, as you call them, I would prefer to talk about so-called Russian elites that have some influence in political life. At least they had it. Their families, it seems like they are finding ways to live and to spend their vacations abroad and to reach to goods that they were considered to deprive with because of the sanctions. And I don't see that they actually suffer a lot right now. They're finding, because it's because they're rich and they have resources still, and they can find ways to not only survive but to continue flourishing. And about middle class, what I can tell you just my impressions of what I heard from my friends and family. Many people say that it seems like particularly in Moscow but other big cities too, that there is no war going on, that they don't feel it personally, and some of them are tired of this agenda, and as they don't feel the impact of it on their personal lives, they just continue living as they lived before. And it may sound weird, but in some way that is true. And the impact of the sanctions is, I think it's gonna be, people gonna feel it gradually. It doesn't happen in a single moment. But what I heard, it's just simple things. People sometimes cannot find medications that they need in pharmacies. Sometimes people cannot repair their cars because the foreign companies are not operating in Russia anymore. And these things seem not very crucial right now, but it feels like it's gonna feel crucial, and the longer the war is going on, the longer the impact will be. So, but right now, it doesn't seem like if the intentions were to somehow punish general public too, it doesn't seem like it was effective.
Okay, anyone like to add anything to any of the three viewpoints you've seen you've seen the chat? Don't wait for me to ask you if you have something to add. If you don't, then I do have a question for Ilya, which is, this entire notion of a conspiracy against Russia. What role does it play in mainstream Russian news and Russian disinformation? And has its contours changed substantially since 24th of February?
Thank you. This notion of conspiracy is key in the public mobilization. That's the first role of it. So in many ways, I have observed in my research that this notion of kind of the West tries to get us is, first of all, a rather popular notion throughout centuries in Russia, but starting from early 2000, it's been basically turned into a powerful instrument of popular mobilization in critical moments. So there have been like short-term periods, like in 2007 during the elections into the parliament, but also Putin's transfer to the prime minister. Also, there was like this short-term period in 2011, 2012, and Putin was coming back, and there was quite a reasonably big opposition to that. The next moment we saw during the Crimea annexation and today. But the difference between the two latter moments is that these kind of public mobilization based on conspiracy theories, it's been quite long term. So we've seen television and other means of the state turning into like 24/7 propaganda mode, as we have seen today. It's fairly serious. It's fairly powerful, especially when it comes with the state punishing its opponents. So one thing is when, let's say, pro-government speakers say all sorts of anti-Western stuff. That's kind of that happens everywhere. Like that, we can find the same thing in the United States. We can find the same thing in other countries of the world. So conspiratorial rhetoric is, in a way, normalized these days. But in the case of Russia, especially in the last decade or so, the conspiratorial rhetoric comes with the amendments to the legislation. And some of the laws are clearly built on this notion of conspiracy against Russia. Well, the same law that punished Taisia, the foreign agents law, the same law kind of that punished Dost, TV Rain, that when they've been named a foreign agent, it's the same it's the same principle. You basically call someone the other inside the country, the dangerous other, you spread a lot of propaganda about that, but then in addition to that, you put some legislative punishment for this person of this organization. So in the last 10 years, basically all the opposition or any organization that could somehow be in opposition or somehow be efficient in bringing the alternative voice, bringing the alternative angle to the story, they have been just washed away from the public space, political space, and now we can see the media space. So it's unfortunately, and when I started my research many years ago, it was quite a different country, and conspiracy theories existed, but they were not so prominent. These days, we can see that it's one of the central elements of the state propaganda, and it's shocking in many ways now.
And do other stakeholders in Russia believe this? Lock, stock, and barrel, the army, the civil service, the diplomatic corps, the media. I'm not talking about common people necessarily. The question applies to them too. But people who affect public policy, people who are decision makers, they believe this wholesale?
The question of believing, not believing, is a very tricky one, because you need to have like interviews with them. Well, we can say it could only be like a speculation. I mean, yes, I can speculate that in the last 5-6 years, for example, among the army officers and among these kind of militarized communities within Russia, this notion of American or UK or whatever Western conspiracy against Russia, that notion have been institutionalized. And we can see some semi-official documents, some doctrines, and we can see lots of kind of speakers who represent the military and FSB and other communities related directly to the law enforcement services, that they refer to conspiracy theories as a way to legitimize their actions. As for other groups, I mean, people are people, like bureaucrats who, let's say, represent the liberal side of the Russian political or economic establishment. They consume the same news channels as any other people in Russia. So if they have biases, if they have psychological or social or cultural predisposition to beliefs in conspiracy theories, they will definitely be rather trusting what these pro-government propaganda channels are pushing rather than to what independent journalists say. And well, one of the kind of central beliefs in the modern Russia is we don't trust anyone. Like everything is possible. It's not so simple as they say, or it's not. There is something about that we don't know, or probably we don't know the whole picture, so we cannot make this judgment. So this, kind of this gray zone of everything is possible is such a fruitful atmosphere for state propaganda and for pushing conspiracy theories.
Farida, would you like to add something here? You've written about political elites.
Well, I would say that, I would like to emphasize that this is my impression, and from the talks of the people who we can call members of elite, of political elite and business elite. I think that it actually doesn't really matter if they believe this propaganda from state channels or not, because I think that they consume what is beneficial to them, and they keep everything in mind to that helps them to pump out the money from the state, and to follow. But yeah, of course they listen to propaganda to be in the context and to be able to survive in the system. But I think these people often explore independent media too, to know the real picture of what's going on, in order to save their money somewhere abroad, to realize what is really going on, again, and they use it for their own personal benefit, and that's I think it's my general assumption about the political elites. It doesn't really matter actually if they personally believe it or not. But we know that from from many sources right now, actually. So there were plenty of articles about it, that that Putin's inner circle, they lied so much to the public that in the end somehow they end up believing their own propaganda. And that's one of the reasons of military failures of Russia in Ukraine. But I can say that it seems to me that they are learning. Actually, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it looks like at least Putin's closest circle, they started to realize that they don't have enough authentic information about Ukraine, especially, and everything else too. So they are learning. They're exploring what, and we can see that with this. I don't know, as Alexei Arestovich said, the depressive phase of the war is going on, and I think that this is the process of adaptation is going on right now.
Ekaterina.
Yeah, I would add just a couple of words to what was already said here, that, it's important to understand that you cannot have the exact digits about the people believing or not believing in propaganda in Russian Federation right now. You cannot know that. I mean, some of the people, as they are used to, they were used to, they sit in their kitchens every single night and start screaming that Putin is a monster and that he is, he's not letting them live freely, and there is no money anymore, and jobs and corruption is terrible. Everyone faces the corruption in Russia. I mean, this is something that there is a common knowledge about the corruption in Russia. You can face it on every single step of your way in this country, and this is something terrible. And also, people don't want to get used to it, and they talk about that every day. Simultaneously, it's impossible to understand what do they really think inside of them, at their brains, when they switch on television, because in Russian Federation they still switch on television every time they come back home after the work, especially in the regions of the country. There is a habit we don't have a television at home, for example, but a lot of millions of Russians still do, and they do watch television. And there are figures of Levada Center, which is also declared a foreign agent in Russia, and which is an independent sociological institution, the only left, actually. They are saying that it's 80% of Russians who support the war. 80% of Russians. We have talked and we have recorded a huge interview with Lev Gutkov from Levada Center, trying to understand how can you be so sure when you have a dictatorship in the country? How can the figures and sociology, how can the sociology even exist in the country when every word you say may result as a prison, right? And he still insists that these figures are right, that 80% of Russians really do support Vladimir Putin because of different reasons. But again, I, as a person who is not involved in sociology, who is a journalist, I have huge doubts in these figures from one hand, and from another, I can understand why millions of Russians, this is a fact, right? Millions of Russians still want to believe and trust what they hear from the television because it's comfortable. It gives you a sense of being right in this disaster. They don't want to believe that their country is killing civilians right now. They don't want to believe that their country, who used to be a country of great victory over Nazism and fascism, is committing the same crimes as Adolf Hitler was committing in 1940 something, right? 41, 45. This propaganda gives them a sense of comfort, gives them an opportunity not to think about this terrible period of time, not to think about the responsibility that they have to bear, but they don't want to. And this gives them a sense of this isolated but cozy home, which is an enemy of NATO and the United States, because they just don't like Russia and Russians, and they are just Russophobic. It's just, it's easier to listen to them and to believe them. But again, I'm not sure about 80%. I think it's something about 60, but these are just my feelings and my thoughts.
Okay, Ilya?
I just add to what Ekaterina said, that discomfort is the result of powerlessness. For many years, the state was working to kind of transfer this idea into the minds of as many Russians as possible, that you cannot change anything, that you are powerless, that whatever happens on the global level, on the national level, on the regional level, you don't have your words, you don't have anything, you don't have a single instrument that you can apply in order to change the situation. As soon as communities, as soon as individuals were finding the way to express their willingness to change the things, at some point they have been put on this list of the government's enemies. And in that regard, I'd like to go back to one of my points, what journalists can do today. It is very important to inform what happens today, but I think the agenda of independent media should also be in providing those who want to listen, and who want at some point to act, and also pass this information to those who doubt what can be done, what is the future, what can be provided after. Because at this point, many people think it's dangerous to act, it's dangerous to think about things, because I don't know when it is going to be over, and it's a very fair concern. And I'm the last one to say, from the comfort of my work, that you have to do this, you have to do that. I'm not saying that, but it's about also the ways, the content that can really help people to start thinking about the alternative scenarios of the future, not even for the their own lives, but probably for those mid-aged people of 45 plus about their kids. Because again, I'm referring to those polls that I have seen. There is a generational division between those who support the war and those who do not support the war. It is a pretty clear division between people of 45 plus and people of the younger generations who are not happy about that. So the big question is, conspiracy theories will always be there. Propaganda will always be there. Disinformation will always be there. What are we going to have after that? What kind of values? What principles? What agenda? That's the big thing. And that we should be concerned about.
Great. So we'll come to Taisia in a minute to take that question on values forward. Taisia, that question's in the chat. But first, Farida, you had a point?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add a little to Ilya's point. I agree. I totally agree that I think the results of even independent polls have some nuances. I think that these 70 or 80% of people who support, well, as they say, who support the war, I think that this is not exactly the answer to the question of support or if they support the war or not. I think it's more about what they can do with that, and it's obviously that they cannot influence on that they have nothing to do with that, because they have absolutely no means to somehow influence the situation. Nobody asked them before starting the war. Another thing I wanted to add is that it's a big paradox for me, actually, and this was quite surprising for me personally as a journalist. That the beginning of the war, the very first days, it was marked by the rise of independent sources of information in Russia. The few remaining sources, Medusa, TV Rain, BBC Russian service, and all the independent outlets, actually, they all had an enormous influx of the audience. And it's a paradox, but they have become mainstream again, but for the moment, but still. And the huge division in the society was really visible. And that's the scariest thing for the Russian government. And that's the reason why they shut everything down. So in such a cruel manner, they blocked everything, literally everything, and even social media. I think that this is a thing that we should bear in mind when we talk about this general support of the war imposed on propaganda. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, just one thing I wanted to add to what Farida has just mentioned, that we have become mainstream during the war. It's very important to understand that TV Rain was already blocked from the cable networks in Russian Federation. I mean, from 2014, after the annexation of Crimea, TV Rain was off every big, huge, right? I mean, influential cable network in Russia. We were, at that moment, before 24th of February, we were there at the packages of small cable networks in the regions of the country, a few, but mainly we were already banned. So they have started the war with a big television station, the independent television station, years ago. The only thing that was left was internet to us. And this is something that really scared them. I'm supporting what Farida has just said. This is something that really scared them when they have just acknowledged that they have killed something already on TV, on something traditional and classic, and everyone is watching TV in Russia, and they have already killed that. But wow, surprise, it's now killing them, propaganda faces online. This was something that they were, I mean, they were not, I don't know, maybe they were ready for that after they saw TV Reims and Yuriduts and Redacted, and there are several projects, media projects that are and have been already really popular online on YouTube. But on that stage, after the war has started, they have seen that people have started to search for alternative sources of information, and it's really important to understand that it was not like everyone said, okay, Vladimir Putin has said that we need this war, so we believe that we need this war. It was not like that. People are critically thinking about what was going on and what is going on. So it's a very important indicator, and we will. That's why we are planning to go on with this fight.
Tasia, you have two formulations in the chat. Can you see them? You can choose to answer either or a third formulation as you please.
Yeah, I see them. I can answer for the first one, and I would say that the media is an important part of this process, social process. I mean, but not the only one. And people usually have a habit of blaming the media for everything, and also at the same time they're expecting a change from them, from media. I mean, but the media can't do it alone, and media outlets can only amplify new ideas and help those ideas grow and show them to a larger number of people. But we also need politicians, scientists, public figures to help. So it's not possible that the media will do this change alone. And also I can say for the second question that of course, we are doing everything that we can to fight this propaganda and to make people believe that there are really those people, a lot of them dying in Ukraine. But there's also a psychological reason of people not believing those victims, I'd say, because you just don't want to believe that such terrible things are happening right beside you. And it's not only a thing to media, for media to do, but also for a large group of influencers and scientists and politicians and all the people that want to change anything. So I think that we will not win this information war until we destroy the machine of propaganda. That's my personal opinion. And I think that it can be destroyed only by fighting it with sanctions, not only like media fighting, but also sanctions, economical sanctions, because a lot of people are getting richer because of these propaganda machines that's working in Russia. It's not only like propaganda, but it's also a source of wealth for many people, I'd say, like Margarita Simonyan or others. And we need to all people who want to see some change need to like push them with sanctions and so on.
Interesting question out there in the Q&A. I'll read it out for the audience. And am I muted? No. I'll read out that question for the audience, but do look at it, panelists. So any of you can jump in first. If we did not have a problem of resourcing, if we had, several millions of dollars available, how do you reach ordinary Russians, especially those in the provinces, outside Moscow, St. Petersburg, who are not computer savvy and do not know how to use VPNs to get around firewalls? Are there any other means like shortwave radio, hacking state TV, push messages on mobile phones, etc., etc.? Are there other technologies you're experimenting with to amplify your message spatially? Yeah, whoever would like to go.
I I can say that we can use different platforms for that. Of course, we are using, like I said, mirror websites, but also if you have more resources in your media outlet. Our outlet is not very rich, but we are doing what we can. And if you have more resources, you can widely use different platforms to get to people in Russia. You can use YouTube, which is not blocked yet in Russia. You can make new campaigns to so people will learn it.
Like to comment on this?
And for making your point.
Yeah.
I guess my internet is not really good right now, so I'm just turning it off. Thank you.
Ilya?
Yeah, that's a good question, but we should first of all contemplate on the human psychology. So it's very important to reach as many people as possible, but what is the chance that people once upon a time decide to consume from another source? So currently they have lots of various information sources that they can use. They even have VPNs, right? But people do not install them. The question is why? Because they have a particular diet, they have a particular agenda and preferences. So one of the key things is certainly shutting off the propaganda, but also it is creating the sort of the parallel news source. So let's take the example, something that I'm familiar with fondly, the example of Tomsk. I'm from there, and they used to have like a very popular, really important TV station, TV2, and Viktor Mushnik left Tomsk after the war began, basically. So if you look at the media landscape of Tomsk today, you're going to see several state-funded television networks. And also you'll see plenty of Instagram channels or Telegram channels. They all are very far from actually reporting what's going on in the city and in the region, right? But nevertheless, people are interested and they're keen on knowing. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, but with the pressure of the state and without people on the ground, it is very difficult to deliver quality news information to the people in the regions. So you can spend it on VPN, probably it's gonna help, but also you need to change preferences of people. So that's it's a complex effort. And I can hardly imagine it's happening anytime soon.
Farida,
yeah, I wanted to add something about how to reach people. I think this is kind of obvious that Putin's core electorate, the people who usually are voting for him, not often voluntarily, but still, this is Asian population, people who are either retired or who have lived in Soviet Union. I'm not saying that all of them support Putin, but it's average assumption that most of Putin's electorate consist of them. And I think that maybe the main focus of independent journalists right now should be on the younger generation that is more willing to, more prepared for changes. And I think that the key things here is that the international platforms like YouTube, like Google, like Facebook, and many social media, they should support this effort of independent journalists and all the independent sources of information to deliver the message to Russian public who can use it and who really use it in their general lives. And because, you know, I think that this is another point that I heard from Russian independent sociologists, is that actually many people in Russia, even those who respond to sociologists' question that they do support the war, etc., they in the bottom of their hearts, they actually realize what's going on, that this is a war, it's not a special operation, and that people are dying there, and it's happening with the hands of Russian army. But they cannot, again, they cannot do anything with that. And I think that's the reason why I think that there must be a constant effort to reach these people too. So, and the more, and the key is that the key aim of independent journalists, and even and also I think oppositional politicians, is to try to teach people to act, because that's the thing that propaganda taught them not to throughout all these years.
What about coming for a minute to external sources? What about media outlets like Al Jazeera, who are operating in Russia, last I heard? So how are they positioning themselves? Anyone?
Sorry, could you explain what exactly?
Media outlets that are not Western, like Al Jazeera, for example, not explicitly Western, or let's say the Japanese. How are they positioning themselves in Russia? I mean, are they amplifying voices other than purely state propaganda?
No. They're not broadcasting in Russian, right? So it doesn't make any sense. People do not get the information in English or in any other languages, because I mean, this is something obvious and something natural, that the propaganda actually and information waves and sources, they're working in Russian language. Most of the people in Russia speak Russian. So the level of
that if something comes out in English or in some other language, then independent media picks it up, translates it, sources it, gives it credit, and then puts it out. And that can be quite effective sometimes. I was wondering if any of that is happening.
I'm not. There is an echo. I'm not sure. But are you saying that they may be the sources of information, like the news? For
example, Al Jazeera brought out a report about 4 days ago that 7 countries in the world are reevaluating their Russian equipment because the Russian equipment performed so badly in the war. They're wondering whether they should have bought it at all, and they're canceling contracts. So, in some circumstances, I've been in Brazil before when this happened. People would take these things, translate them, and they'd reach out to the public saying, there's a dimension here you've not seen. I'm just wondering if something like that is happening in Russia or in the opposition or no.
Ilya?
Frida, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Sorry.
Please go on.
No, I just could not hear the big part of the question. So I think Ilya understood. So please, could you answer?
Well, first of all, the biggest problem with the Russian audience, they don't speak foreign languages. The very few people in Russia who speak foreign languages, they consume foreign media. So they are not really the target group, the target audience. Al Jazeera or other alternative sources, they work for global audiences, and these global audiences do not include the Russians. the very few foreign media that actually work for the Russian audiences in Russian, Deutsche Welle, BBC Russian service. Have I missed something? They've been working, and they deliver a high quality content, that they've also been banned. So it's about the willingness to look for alternative information. A lot of people in Russia, the majority, they do not have this habit. And no matter how many TV stations or media you're going to have broadcasting to Russia, there is a number of factors that will actually define whether the people would like to switch to these sources of information or not. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Can I also add something, if you don't mind? That there is a very important thing about the audience that we are reaching. You have asked Farida and others about how to reach these people and who are the targets of the international or independent or whoever you name it, just professional media outlets. I would tell you that it's not only the youth, which is obviously much more sophisticated, and these are people who can use VPN and who can go online and try to find different sources and try to criticize what they see on television, and maybe these are people who do not watch television at all. As I understand, there are millions of young people in Russia who just don't watch television. They're using internet, and now they are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, in spite of the fact that they're banned in Russia as extremists. So this is one thing. And another thing is, I call it swing people, like swing states in America, people who do not exactly know what to believe in and what the source is to trust, and people who are doubting the statements of Vladimir Putin or Sergei Lavrov or other representatives of the government of Russia, people who are not so sure that everything is going in the right direction. And I don't know how many people I'm talking about, because there is no sociology. Again, I need to underline this. There's no sociology, real sociology in dictatorship. I think this is very important. But I don't know how many people I'm talking about, but I think that there are a lot of citizens of Russian Federation who can just, doubt what they're watching right now, and who can doubt if the position of their state is right. So we think that these people are very important to us, and these are people who we need to talk to. And YouTube, Telegram, VPNs, Facebook, these are the tools that we need to use.
Can I add something about the international media? I have a certain experience of working in international media. I used to work at the BBC Russian service, and I think the main thing here to understand is that foreign media in Russia are pictured as the enemy voices, like it was in Soviet Union. And even if somehow their information is squeezing from some sources, there was a huge smear campaign against foreign journalists, together with Russian journalists, happening at least the last 10 years. And international and the other thing to realize is that the vast majority of Russian people have never been abroad. They don't speak foreign languages, so they literally have no opportunity to reach the information from international media. And I think that yeah, and about the one important thing I wanted to tell you about working for BBC Russian service. Although some of international media have their segments in Russian language, they are still not mainstream, like at all. And we know that in previous years, Russian government, they even somehow used to bear with for example, BBC Russian service. And the reason why they did that, and that's the thing that I heard from my acquaintances among Russian officials, is that, you know, guys, nobody reads you, nobody watches your pieces, and you are no threat to us, and that's why you can do almost whatever you want, because you're not dangerous for us. Nobody can reach you. Nobody's reading you, and of course it's not true entirely. And me personally, I was, for example, banned from the events with Vladimir Putin after I posed my question about his family at his press conference while I was working on BBC. But still, yeah, the international media, they are both have a kind of bad reputation in the eyes of many, and they are considered as enemies and the voices of enemies. And yeah, and the difficulty to reach them is also a huge thing. And this is the reason why it is so important for Russian journalists to continue their work, because there is no one else, literally no one else, who can reach Russian audience except them. Thank you.
Well, I must say that this will be one of the most, well, one of the bleakest, one of the most interesting and multidimensional interactions I've engaged with. I'm Indian, I don't come from a great democracy. And I've worked in Brazil, which is not exactly a great democracy. But there are taps open there, spigots open there, which seem to be shut to you. All I can say is Godspeed, and I hope that you are able to overcome what you've said to overcome. I have to go for another event, so I'm going to hand over to my colleague Stephanie to take you through a minute and a half of perhaps each of you would like to say, and then we'd like to conclude by at least providing our audience and others through our channels with the platforms by which to be able to access you and read you. So thank you very much on my behalf, and over to you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Arvind. Yeah, so I think just to close, we wanted to sort of give maybe each of our panelists 1 minute or so to, I guess, reflect on either a key point of emphasis, or my other question was, I'm not sure, from that sort of, I guess, bleak conjecture sort of summary of what's going on, your thoughts on what can be done either by non-Russians, governments, think tanks, journalists, or by Russians in Russia or in exile. So I guess to give each of you either 1 minute to just comment on what you'd like to emphasize, or any last thoughts on perhaps this question of, well, so what can we do? What could we do to support you? And maybe I'll go in the reverse order also. If Ilya, give you 1 minute, and then pass through and end with Katya.
Thank you. Okay, I think I started my introductory point was with what should be done. So I think in that regard, I'm going to use this opportunity and say that we are facing quite a difficult point right now in international crisis. It's called the fatigue. From the crisis, from the war, like people all over the world are very tired at the moment. And we can observe quite a lot of pressure from lobbyists in the European Union, in the United States, from just limiting help to Ukraine, etc. What I can say as a scholar, and in many ways as a person who's been studying Russian media and disinformation for many years, a very important thing now is for the global community, for think tanks, for governments to actually support Russian independent journalism. And I think I'm the best placed person to say that, because, you know, we have free journalists, free independent journalists sitting there, and, you know, I think I should be the one who should emphasize that, because they are actually doing the best job so far. And this fatigue that might appear right now, the tiredness of the conflict, the hopefulness that, you know, if Russia is going to take the Donbass and things will get as normal as possible, things will never get normal. And we have to face that. And one of the key elements, aside of anything else, is actually supporting the independent media. So I think that would be my message in addition to everything I've said so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tizia, would you like to?
I can say that I would say that the Russian journalists need a megaphone right now to make their voices louder, and any help that will make the thing work better is very important right now. And I think that to fight Russian propaganda, it's not only a task for Russian journalists right now, but also for a global community. And as a Russian journalist, I would say that we all will be glad to work with global community and international media organizations and foreign journalists and so on, just to fight this state propaganda more effectively and be as effective as we can against these catastrophes that is happening right now. Thank you.
Yeah, and also just to say, we posted links up there to our speakers' sites to find more about their work, so please do follow. Farida, would you like to go next?
I would like to, in conclusion, I would like to say that I think the important thing to understand is that independent journalists right now have not only a duty to fight with propaganda, I mean directly, literally, but the other important job right now is to tell people what is really going on inside the country. It is very challenging when when so many independent journalists left the country, but still this is a huge aim that I think is very, very important. And there's a lack of the media that are able to describe what is really going on in different fields in Russia. And this is actually, I see it as a personal challenge. I dream about developing my project to involve in. I dream about involving media professionals from Russia, maybe to even if they decide to stay there and find it safe to stay there, but to treat our readers and listeners with respect, deliver them quality information, and maintain this truthful picture of the world and of Russia itself. Because it seems like when you open, I don't know, social media or even in Russian, it looks like there are so many things that are being told, so many things that are being explained, but this is literally nothing. Right now, there is absolutely no independent media. That has the opportunity to deliver its message to the masses because of this blockade and everything. And I think that we really need more independent outlets to fight the ignorance and also misinformation.
Thank you so much. And Katerina.
Yeah, just a couple of things. So, as Ilya has mentioned in the beginning, it's really important to figure out what would be the values that we will deliver to the people. This is the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about the future development of TV Rain and of Russian language journalism. It's important to know what we are offering people, not only criticizing propaganda, not only criticizing the criminal government that right now is sitting in Moscow, but also showing alternatives, what exactly the democracy and human rights and freedoms, what does it look like and why is it so important and what you guys need to fight for. It really means a lot to me and to my colleagues at TV Rain. This is first thing. Second is just to remember that Russia should not be blocked and banned and isolated. Russia is not 140 million Vladimir Putins, right? It's 140 million different people who have their own thoughts and their own principles and their own things that we need to respect, and the whole world needs to respect. Just because the whole world, democratic world is different from the Kremlin, and because of democratic world has different values than the Kremlin has. The support to people who fight for the freedom of Russia, for the best, better future of Russia is really important. Not to forget. This is something that we are going to push for as well. Not to forget about Russians, Russia, and not to forget that there are a lot of people who do not support this terrible, catastrophic war that is going on right now in Ukraine. So just be with us. Let's stay in touch, and thank you very much for this opportunity. It's really important to be there with you and to talk about these things. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I think that's a really important and good point to end on. Just remembering one that I think from what all of you guys have shared, that censorship is incredibly depressing, and Putin's Russian Federation can also seem incredibly overwhelming, but it is not Russia and is not the full story. And I think your persistence as journalists to continue amidst these changing challenges is incredibly inspiring and gives, I think, a little bit of hope that we need to remember. I just want to conclude by saying again, links to everyone's pages and ongoing work are in the channel. We'll also put it on ODI's website and sharing a recording of this as well. I guess with that, I'd just like to thank our panelists again and wish you all the best going forward, and we are going to do what we can to support you and to work with you in this challenging environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.